All right, what's going on? 3 o'clock chat here from the NBA. The Pistons have fired Monty Williams. They still owe him $65 million. And the Pacers have signed Pascal Siakam to a max extension, $189.5 million. The NBA draft is next Wednesday. Our coverage will start at 3 live from Moda Center for the Trailblazers draft party. And we'll continue through the night, concluding with Joe Cronin's press conference on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Bad news for the LA Sparks. Rookie Cameron Brink has suffered a torn ACL. Mariners lead the AL West by 10 games. They're at Cleveland today. First pitch at 3:40. Bobby Wu is on the bump. Checking the scoreboard from the College World Series. Bottom of the 7th in the double elimination round. Tennessee on top of Florida State 6-2. In an elimination game, Florida routed Kentucky 15-4. All right, Godfather, I am looking right now at the extended forecast here in the Portland to Vancouver metropolitan area.
Yes.
Between now all the way out to June 28th, we're looking at sunshine and temperatures anywhere from 90 to high 80s to high 70s. I think we're now past the crappy weather and now into summertime, which is fabulous. I cannot wait to get on the golf course tomorrow morning.
Can we get a remote outside somewhere? How about Heron Lakes? You know those guys out there. Can they put us up for a day or two?
I'll go anywhere outside.
Yeah, even up on the roof up here, huh?
I might even be willing to go outside in Gresham and do a show out there. I might actually do that.
What made you bring up Gresham?
Just to let you know how badly I want to be outside in the sunshine. What I hate about the studio, and I complained about this when I walked in today, is that it's 83 and sunny, or at least that was the conditions when I came into work today.
Yes.
But I'm wearing a hoodie. I got my jacket on like you do because it gets so freaking cold in here.
Yeah. People ask me, they say, gosh, on YouTube, it looks like you're wearing a jacket. Yeah, well, that's because I am.
Yeah.
It's cold in here.
It is. So I'm a little bit hot right now because I worked out today. Luke tortured me again.
Yeah.
So my body temperature right now is always high after the workout, but that will come down. The hoodie will be going on at some point here before the end of the show.
It will, for sure.
All right. So coming up on the show, we do have a couple of 4-packs to give away for your Portland Thorns. I was a naughty boy yesterday and forgot to give away a 4-pack.
Uh-oh.
I had the best of intentions, but I forgot, and I put Mike Oakes in a bad spot. So we're going to give away 2 4-packs today. We'll do that at 4:20. And then Brad Botkin is going to join us at 5:20 to kind of put a bow on the NBA season with the Celtics winning the championship. We're going to hear more from Joe Mazzulla. I hate to admit it, but the more I hear from Joe Mazzulla, the more I love about this coach.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, Chad. I vastly underrated him.
Me too. And what I have a very simple philosophy in life, Dwight. Like, even if I don't agree with an individual's outlook on the world, political beliefs, or whatever, it doesn't matter to me. If someone is real,
yeah,
like the real deal, genuine, like someone that what you see is what you get, even if I may not agree with their take on everything, I respect the fact that they are standing strong for what they believe in, that they're a real person. Like, that's all I'm looking for from people. I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on when it comes to politics, all this other nonsense. Are you a real person? And Joe Mazzulla would appear to be real. And you know how this works in the NBA or with coaching in general. Players, if they know that you're a real deal, they'll buy in and they'll play hard for you. It's pretty simple.
They respect that. I think he's very respected amongst the players because it sounds like he lives who he is.
Yeah.
It's not fake. It's not phony. And when you hear it, you think, yeah, okay, whatever, because people say stuff and they don't live it. This guy's a real one, I think.
Yeah, so we'll talk about him. We got some thoughts on Angel Reese. Speaking of the real deal, we'll get into Angel Reese, who is continuing to make some headlines across the WNBA, which is interesting. And, of course, we got to talk about Willie Mays. Now, Godfather, I wish, like I do with a lot of athletes, Wilt Chamberlain, Johnny Unitas, Willie Mays, Babe Ruth. There's people I wish I could go back in a time machine and be able to see play in their prime with my own eyes. I never got that opportunity because I'm not old enough.
Yeah.
You've seen Willie Mays. All I can tell you about Willie is that when I was a boy and I was into baseball cards, basketball cards, or I was just getting into sports, there were certain names that would pop up that were almost like mythological characters.
Yeah.
Willie Mays would be one of those. My biggest memory of Willie Mays is seeing him on the old school home run derby show where he was really terrific and could hit the heck out of the baseball. But the biggest thing I remember with you telling me about Willie is that he was at that game that you snuck into down in San Francisco when you were young.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Willie Mays, who passed away at the age of 93, one of the greatest baseball players of all time.
Well, Chad, he was the first. Baseball scouts have always talked about the 5 tools. You got to have 5 tools.
What are they?
You're talking about hitting for power, hitting for batting average, fielding, throwing, and running. 5 tools. He was the first guy who really excelled at all 5. And he carried that throughout his career. He led the league in stolen bases 4 years in a row. He hit 660 home runs and missed a year and almost 2 years because of military service, Korean War. And those were when he was young and probably would have hit many more home runs. He would have passed 700 probably, and probably passed Babe Ruth's total. So there is that. But just such an exciting player. So much joy in the way he played. And it just made it fun to watch him. When I was a kid, Chad, there were 2 center fielders in the game. There was Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays. And you were either a Mickey guy or a Willie guy. And that's the way it was in the neighborhood and everywhere else. And I picked Willie from the start. Mantle was a Yankee. And at that time, I was so sick of the Yankees being on television every week. And I got tired of it. And then Mickey got hurt all the time. And that kept you from being really into Mickey because he was on the injured list all the time. So Willie was the guy, and Willie played every game. Year after year, in those days, 154-game schedule, played every game. Then 162 games, was playing every game. He finally, toward the end of his career, in September, would play himself into exhaustion and have to go to the hospital and spend a couple of days there just to recover.
Wow.
He was just an incredible player with an incredible joy. And as a little kid, my dad took my brother and I to spring training, and we got his autograph along with Willie McCovey. In those days, players just parked out on the street. Willie parked his Cadillac out there, had his bag and his bats, and was headed for the ballpark. And my dad said, "That's Willie Mays." So we jumped out of the car and went and got his autograph, and that was a great thrill. And then I saw him, especially during my college years, I saw him in Candlestick many, many times.
That's awesome. I remember you also telling me about, like many of the greats do across sport, the ability to make the impossible look routine and easy, a certain smoothness to his game.
Yeah. Well, he certainly had that. And he was unique. His batting stance wasn't a classic stance. You wouldn't look at it and say, wow, like Griffey is like, what a pretty swing. Not with Willie, man. Willie was quick, hard, and ferocious with his swing. And his outfield play, he got his cap intentionally one size too small so that when he ran, his cap would come off. And that was just cool. You see him running, his cap would fly off. And he had this philosophy in the outfield. I can make the easy ones look hard, and I can make the hard ones look easy.
That's great.
That's pretty good.
He was celebrated often during my time down in San Francisco. He would show up at Giant games all the time, and I recall he is Barry Bonds' godfather, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Barry loves him.
Yeah, because Bobby Bonds and Willie were teammates, and Bobby, of course, was Barry's father. And he was there all the time hanging out with Willie, and I remember seeing that. Willie was good to him, as he was good to most young players. He seemed to adopt them to a degree.
He's one of the legends of the game. You could make an argument he's the greatest baseball player of all time, couldn't you?
I make that argument. Yeah, he's the best I've seen, Chad, and I've been watching him a long time. He's the best all-around player I've seen. I've seen better hitters. think Ted Williams was a better hitter. Tony Gwynn was probably a better hitter. But Willie did everything better than any of those guys.
Meaning the 5 tools that you mentioned,
Yeah.
to be elite with all 5 of your tools made him a unique player.
I think Reggie Jackson said it best. He said people would show up to see Babe Ruth hit home runs. But that was about it. They didn't show up to watch him play center field. They didn't watch him steal bases, although he stole more than people actually think he did. But they showed up. I mean, just watching Willie play center field was worth the price of admission. He played shallow, Chad, real shallow. It's like, what is this guy doing playing roaming short? But you could see in his classic case off Vic Wertz in the 54 World Series, he could go back on a ball like nobody, and he cut off so many singles by playing shallow.
Because he could move so well.
Oh, man, he was so quick. He got a great jump on the ball. One of those really smart players who didn't need that little card in his pocket to know where to play. He knew all that. That was just the brainiac mind he had of just knowing, this guy pulls a little bit, but this guy's pitching, I'll play him here. You know, he had all that.
Oh, that's what those cards are. It's not a love note from your girlfriend. It's actually to tell you where to position yourself for different players.
No, it's not a reminder from your wife on what to pick up at the grocery store on the way home. That's defensive positioning for every hitter in the lineup. And then when they change pitchers, they actually bring out new cards because each pitcher has a different chart too.
Well, that's great. We're going to have a lot on Willie Mays today. We're going to hear from Vin Scully. Keith Hernandez had some very flattering words to say about him. We'll hear from him in a couple of minutes. Speaking of baseball, I did catch the end of the Dodgers-Rockies game last night.
Oh, my.
Dodgers down 9-4 going into the top of the ninth in Colorado. And in that park, as you know, it's kind of a silly place.
Yeah.
A lot of goofy things happen with the thin air. The Dodgers scored 7 runs in the top of the ninth to take the lead. They win the game. And it looked like Teoscar Hernandez may have went around on a check swing with 2 strikes, but it was not called a strike. And Bud Black went ballistic in the dugout. He got tossed. And then, of course, the Dodgers got a grand slam from Hayward.
Jason Hayward, yeah.
And then Teoscar Hernandez hit the go-ahead 3-run bomb. And they took a 2-run lead and won the game. Classic. The Rockies suck.
That half swing call that the base umpires make, no robot is going to help them on that. They've got to figure out a way to make that a more standard call because every guy who's standing out there in the corner of the infield with a blue suit on calls it differently. And it's really tough. It really did cost the Rockies
I thought he went
a game.
around. I thought he went around.
It sure looked like he did, yeah.
And I thought he went around. But Bud Black, I'm not a lip reader per se, but I'm pretty sure I know what he told the ump after he saw that call.
Well, you know it was bad when some of the stations that are showing it blur that out. They blur out his lips so that you can't even lip read it.
He said, that's effing bleepity bleep.
Yeah.
And he had that look of disgust on his face, like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
But that park is crazy.
It is.
A lot of goofy stuff happens in Colorado.
Yeah, the ball just carries, and the fences are long to make up for the fact that the ball carries, which means singles drop in front of the outfielders all the time.
Yeah, crazy. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. We'll come back. We'll hear from Keith Hernandez and a bit from Vin Scully on Willie Mays, the baseball legend who passed away at the age of 93. And then Shaden Sharp, we got news on his Olympic participation. Could that be a help to him as he continues to move forward in his development? Brad Bakken at 520. And at 420, we will hook you up with a couple of 4-packs for the Thorns, your chance to win here in the Rip City Drive. All right, sorry about that. I had to let the AC/DC play out just a little bit.
Happy you did that. Yes.
Dirty Deeds. Such a great song. All right, let's try to put into perspective the numbers of Willie Mays. And I'm blown away by how many people over the last 24 hours have said he is the best baseball player I've ever seen with my own eyes.
Yeah, people think it's impossible that somebody from that long ago could have had the athletic ability and really the skill to match up with today's players. But so many people who know, not just me, I'm a dum-dum. I say he's the best I've seen. But when you have guys like Tim Kirkjian, Keith Hernandez, list goes on and on and on.
Vin Scully,
who say, not only my favorite player of all time, the best I've ever seen.
That's pretty awesome. In his career, Godfather, plate appearances 12,545. He had a WAR of 156.2, scored 2,068 runs, 3,293 hits, 525 doubles, 141 triples, 660 home runs.
Yeah.
6,080 total bases. He had 1,468 bases on balls, 1,909 RBIs, stolen bases 339, defensive runs saved 185. That's pretty good.
All of those numbers are just spectacular. But, there are people who can approach him or beat him in one category, but the spread of that, the total of all those tools is unbelievable.
All right, let's take a listen to Keith Hernandez, who is now on the Mets crew. And while the Mets baseball team might be a little bit stinky, their broadcast crew is elite, and Keith Hernandez doing a heck of a job.
Yeah, he chokes up while he's trying to say this.
Here's Keith Hernandez on the broadcast last night talking about the great Willie Mays.
At Shea Stadium when he was younger, and I also was in his company when he was older and he was legally blind. And what always came off was, and he was to say, hey, kid, he had that ebullient personality, infectious and genuine. And I got to tell him that he was the greatest player I ever saw.
It's pretty awesome. He was choked up right there.
Yeah.
Tim Kirkjian, who is a great baseball historian, he was on SportsCenter last night with SVP, and he tried to summarize the career of Willie Mays. Here he is. Take a listen.
Well, it begins with Willie Mays. Willie Mays is, for me, the greatest player I've ever seen. And I was captivated by baseball at the earliest age. But when I saw Willie Mays lead off the 65 All-Star game on a color TV in our house, I just could not believe what I was watching. He was the greatest player. As Johnny Bench once put it, he was the perfect baseball player. He had the perfect build. He had a style to him that nobody else has ever had. I grew up 3,000 miles from San Francisco, and I worship Willie Mays. Every time he was on TV, which wasn't very often for me, I couldn't miss it. That's how great he was. And I'm telling you, Scott, when he broke in 1951, he was the greatest combination of power, speed, and defense that the game had ever seen. And here it is, 73 years later, and I believe with all my heart, he is still the greatest combination of power, speed, and defense that the game has ever seen. That's how great Willie Mays was.
That's pretty high praise right there from Tim Kirkjian, who, like you, Godfather, has seen a few baseball players in his time.
I was just going to say, I rest my case. I mean, Kirkjian's seen them all, really, and he knows what he's looking at. He's an expert, and he's not the only one saying it. There's a lot of people saying it. It's incredible to me.
All right, this here is the great Vin Scully, who we recently lost, unfortunately, the greatest broadcaster of all time. And Willie came by to see him in the booth before he retired. And so the audio is not perfect, but just take a listen to Vin Scully, who, again, like Dwight, like Tim, has seen a few ball players in his time.
Yeah.
And the excitement in his voice when he looks around and sees Willie Mays in the booth.
Buck, Vin Scully. I mean, so many people. Come on over here, just so we can. Let me tell you something. First of all, you've always been my favorite player, even though you wore the wrong uniform. You know that. But as I have told everybody, you've also been the greatest player I ever saw.
Thank you.
And I've said that for a long, long time. It was a remarkable experience for me as a life.
All right.
That's so Vin. You're my favorite player, even though you've been wearing the wrong uniform.
Yeah.
Because he was a Giant, and then he had the Dodgers, arch rivals.
Wrong uniform, but you're my favorite player, and you're also the best player I've ever saw.
Yeah.
And that's Vin Scully. He saw everyone.
Yeah. I mean, it's the truth, Chad. It's just the truth. And nobody can believe it, and especially young people can't believe that anybody was ever better than Ken Griffey Jr. or several other guys. But it's truth. It really is.
That's what I hate about getting older. You know, losing your heroes.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Because there's never going to be another Willie Mays. He's a unique.
Well, you know, just like Tim Kirkjian, he was my guy, Chad. Growing up, he was my guy. And I think I'm glad he was.
It's great.
Picked a winner there just
You
as a
did.
kid.
Yeah.
I like this guy.
Isn't that great to have that?
Oh, man. You know.
Yeah.
You-
Well, I
you've
did. I
had
grew
your
up.
heroes, too.
Yeah. Ozzie Smith was my baseball hero as a youngster. And,
Great hero.
And he was a great man. But just watching him play, and even when he would take the field to start out the year and he would do his somersault with the backflip,
Yeah.
it was just like, who does that?
Yeah, but he's a lot like Willie in that you could see the joy playing a kid's game. And that's what they're doing. They're playing a kid's game, and they're out there kind of acting like kids. There's nothing better than that.
No, it's great. Lo Neal used to always tell me that, where he said he would go back and do it all over again because he played fullback and he took a lot of head trauma.
He got beat up.
He got the crap beat out of him. And I said, would you do it all over again, knowing physically the price that you paid? And he goes, in a heartbeat. And he goes, because we were playing a kid's game but getting paid a king's ransom. He goes, where else can you do that? He goes, it was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And that's why when you see these players like Willie or some of the greats that you grew up with, they brought a certain joy to the game, and they would do things that other people couldn't do. And, you know, for us, athletes, the sports that we grew up watching, they were larger than life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. In those days, it was even more so.
And it's funny because for me, you know, you've talked to a lot of athletes too. With the guys that I'm covering in today's game, I don't get nervous when I'm around them. But when I run into an athlete that I grew up admiring,
Oh, yeah.
I get uncomfortable and warm. Like I feel my body temperature rise
Yeah.
because there's just something about their aura or presence that they bring to a room, or the way that they handle themselves or carry themselves. It blows me away. You know, because those were our heroes growing up.
Yeah, you know, so many stories I saw on social media from major league players who ran into Willie and couldn't speak. They didn't even know what to say. It was like that Saturday Night Live episode. Paul McCartney, you remember when you were with the Beatles?
Yeah. That's so good. Thank you for sending that clip to me. I watched that over again. I forgot how good that was. And Paul handled that perfectly.
Uh-huh.
The statement put out by Barry Bonds, who was the godson of Willie Mays, he said, I am beyond devastated and overcome with emotion. I have no words to describe what you mean to me. You helped shape me to be who I am today. Thank you for being my godfather and always being there. Give my dad a hug for me. Rest in peace, Willie. I love you forever. Hashtag say hey. There you go.
Yeah, people have asked me, why was he the say hey kid? But you heard a little bit of it when Keith Hernandez said, yeah, he'd see it. He'd say, hey, kid. The thing was he couldn't remember names. It's the same problem I have. So instead of saying somebody's name, he'd just say, hey, hey. So pretty soon it was like, there goes that say hey kid.
Go get it, Willie, go get it. What do you mean, go get it? Man, that ball's way in left field. I don't care what field it's in. Willie plays all field. Every time we come to the game, you talking about Willie plays all the field. That's right. Let's call Willie and ask him. Call him. Okay, hey, Willie.
Yes.
Are you Willie Mays?
Yes.
Whose ball was that?
Why was it?
In left field.
Well, that's Irvin's ball.
I told you that. Every time we come to the game, we got to talk about it. The next time I'm going to sit in the grandstand.
Say, hey, fellas, what's your name?
Say who? Say Willie. Say hey. Say who? Swinging at the plate. Say hey. Say who? Say Willie. That giant kid is great. When he hit.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. All right. We got more on Willie coming up on the show. I do want to ask you about this. Shaden Sharp, what's the plans for him when it comes to Olympic competition with Team Canada?
Well, Team Canada has submitted its roster apparently, and they have some pretty good NBA players. Not a lot of superstars, other than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
He's big time up there.
Yeah, and so Shaden Sharp has been invited to the camp, and they've said publicly he's not going to have a chance to make the team, but we think he has a future with this team and in this development. So we're going to have him around just to get used to everything and let him play in the scrimmages and all that. So, it's going to be a big break for him, I think, to go in the summer and not play summer league against a bunch of clowns in Vegas. No offense to those clowns.
Of course.
But he's playing against their best players in Canada, and that's going to be good for him. I hope he stays healthy and gets through it okay.
Well, I relate that experience, and I'm happy for Shaden to be able to be a part of that. With the All-Star game, we've talked about guys who get a chance to go, and you're around other greats, and you get a chance to play with them, be around them, ask them questions. I'm just wondering for a young player 2 years in who, is continuing to develop and trying to learn, to be around some other great players on Team Canada, like that could be helpful potentially to his development, right? To be around some of the other big-time players from his own country and be able to ask questions. And, you can pick up certain things just through conversations or being around them on the practice court. That could be a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if he takes full advantage of it, I would assume he'll come back next year a better player.
And that's what you hope for. So that's good for him. And, I hate to admit it, Canada, not a big fan of Canada, but they do have some pretty good basketball players.
Yeah, it's coming up there. Now, John Lashway, the former Portlander, has organized that pro league up there. They have their own pro league in Canada now, and it's kind of cool.
Are we just going to sit back and allow these other countries to continue to take over our game? It really pisses me off.
Well, the league's working so hard to get them to do that. That's what all of this international play is all about, and sending teams all over to play. The commissioner wants everybody in the world to play because hopefully they'll buy those City Connect jerseys, right?
Yeah, with the sprinkles on them and all that crap. All right, so here's my biggest question. What would it take for the United States to change the development program for young basketball? Because AAU is clearly not getting the job done. So how could you do an overhaul in terms of how basketball is being played in the States to make sure we don't continue to lose ground to the Euros and other countries around the world? Is there any answer to that? Or are we just screwed?
Well, I think the NBA attempted such things with the G League Ignite team, to where they took a bunch of those kids and put them where they were playing G League teams. It didn't work at all. It just didn't work.
Yeah,
I think it was partly the coaching, partly the league wasn't probably good for them. I think they weren't quite ready for that kind of competition. It was a mess. So I don't know, Chad. I think we're stuck with this unless somebody comes up with some sort of an academy where you could send the best players when they're young and let them grow up in that academy where you taught them how to play the game the right way. Because that's what they're doing in Europe. They send these guys off to, I don't know.
Like basketball boot camp?
Barcelona FC, the soccer, but they have their basketball section. And Real Madrid has the same thing. And you take these kids in at 14 or 15 and they move them up as their talent allows, and they play against grown men. Pretty soon, some of them turn pro at 16. And they're in a structure where they can thrive, and it's not just a one-on-one game.
All right, Sean and Sandy has chimed in, and he said Roy Campanella my favorite Dodger, once said you have to have a lot of little boy in you to play baseball.
Yeah. Yeah. Campy was right. You did. Another great player out of the Negro Leagues who had instant success in the major leagues. Terrific player. Great catcher, paralyzed in a car accident before he could finish up his career.
But yeah, the players that never lose sight of that, right? Because sometimes once you get deeper into the game, you've been playing for a long time, it becomes a business. You know, just like in any type of work you do, sometimes you lose sight of why you first got into it in the first place.
Yeah, and you have to remind yourself once in a while, hey, wait a minute, we're playing a game here. It's supposed to be fun.
It's not rocket science.
No.
It's baseball.
The teams that have fun seem to be the ones that are most successful,
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, by the way, you sent me that video. I think it was celebrating Tim Lincecum's like 40th birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Showing some of his highlights throughout his career.
Uh-huh.
That guy's a bad boy. He was a bad boy, Godfather.
Yeah, he was something, wasn't he?
The stud.
You talk about a pitcher who's fun to watch pitch. He was.
In his prime, unhittable.
Yeah,
he was great.
Close. Yeah.
Great postseason player and a giant legend.
Was he better for you than Mad Bum?
No, Mad Bum has got a special place.
Yeah.
Mad Bum, I believe, is the best postseason pitcher I've ever seen. And if you look at his numbers, his World Series numbers stack up as well as anybody.
Yeah.
But Lincecum was great. Like I've told you, down in the Bay Area, there are a few untouchables. You can't say anything bad about Barry Bonds, Tim Lincecum,
Buster Posey,
Mad Bum, Steph.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the 49ers have a couple of guys too.
Mm-hmm.
Ronnie Lott, Joe Montana, Steve
Jerry
Young,
Rice.
Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
But Tim Lincecum they look at him special because he's the guy that got the ball rolling on their 3 championships, that started, in 2010. So it's special for them.
Well, and they called him the Freak.
Yeah.
I mean, the way he pitched, his style, what he did was really, there's not been anybody like that.
And what's he got? 3 championships, a couple of Cy Youngs, and a couple of no-hitters. So he and Koufax kind of stand in a category on their own in terms of what they did.
Yeah. Postseason, Koufax was really good, as was Jack Morris was real good in the postseason.
Morris was great.
Yeah.
The other guys with great postseason numbers, the Bloody Sock guy, he's got terrific postseason numbers. And then
Bob Gibson was
was great. Bob Gibson's probably one of the toughest badasses in baseball history.
Yeah. Whitey Ford was also very good for the Yankees.
Jack Morris. I've figured it out. The World Series, the Game 7 against Atlanta in the '91 World Series with his forkball, it was he was straight up nasty. How many innings did he go?
I think he went 10 shutout innings.
He's a freak.
Yeah,
a freak.
Yeah, Lonnie Smith's base running mistake, I think, was in that game.
So the best World Series that I've ever seen in my lifetime, that World Series '91, and then
really,
the 2001 World Series with the Diamondbacks and Yankees.
Yeah.
Those 2 World Series stand out above the rest.
Yeah.
Because they were 7-game thrillers.
Yeah, the one with the D-backs went right down to the last play of the game.
I just can't believe that they got over on Mo. And I just can't believe that, because when Rivera normally takes the mound, you're like, okay, this is over.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think it was Soriano who hit the bomb, and you're like, okay, they got this, but they didn't get this. And the Diamondbacks found a way to get it done. It was crazy. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. And when we come back, we'll get Dwight's take on the Stanley Cup Finals. Edmonton got it done on the road last night and forced a Game 6 back home.
Got to keep that cup out of Canada, Chad.
I love the fact that Canada, it's been like forever.
Yeah, 93. 1993 is the last time they had the cup.
And the team with the LA Kings had Wayne Gretzky, and they still lost the cup.
Yeah.
Gretzky was on the Kings, and they lost the cup. That was the last time Canada won. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, it is.
Jeez. All right, Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad. All right, Godfather. The Edmonton Oilers did the unthinkable last night, and they got over down in Florida in Game 5. They forced a Game 6 back in Edmonton. What's it going to take for them to force the Game 7? Because that would be nice to have, a Game 7 for the Stanley Cup.
Well, Chad, I think there's a real good chance it could get to Game 7. The next game's in Edmonton, and I think they'll win that game up there. They should, to force those monstrous plane flights between Edmonton and basically Miami. It's like 8 hours, I think.
Yeah, it's like 2,400 miles that separate the two cities.
Man, that's brutal. But anyway, I think they will win. Connor McDavid is on a heater right now. He's got, I think, 7 points in the last 2 days, 2 games. And he's probably the best player in hockey right now. And hockey's the kind of sport where that one guy can beat you. You know, I mean, he carries the puck so well. They showed that goal last night several times where he basically beat 4 defenders and passed off to somebody wide open for the finish. And he's terrific. But I have a feeling Florida's got to up the physicality a little bit. Forecheck better. Keep them in their own zone, bottled up. Don't let them get out into open ice, because you give a guy like McDavid open ice, he's going to kill you. So you want to keep them bottled up in their own zone, and you got to be physical with them. And that's kind of Florida's game. They need to do more of that, I think. Kachuk has not really played all that well until the last game, and he finally showed up for that one. So I think we might be looking at a Game 7, and if so, watch it. Even if you're not a hockey fan, folks, watch a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup, because it's incredibly tense, exciting. Just both teams are on edge. It's amazing stuff.
Edmonton jumped out to a big lead early last night, and Florida slowly chipped away, and they got the deficit down to 1 at 4-3. I thought, and with over 10 minutes left in the third period, I thought they're going to be able to even this up, and we could be looking at sudden death, but they just couldn't get over the hump.
Yeah, they couldn't. I was shocked they didn't tie it. They're playing at home. They're 2 goals down. They get that first goal and plenty of time. Like you said, half the third period still left. They're putting intermittent pressure on, but really, Edmonton did a great job of just holding them off. And hockey's so dependent on your goaltenders, too. And all of a sudden, the kid from Edmonton's doing a much better job. And Florida's got probably the best goalie in the league. I think he's won the Vezina twice and probably win it again this year. He's the best goalie in the league. And last couple of games, he's had some problems.
All right, so I'm hoping for a Game 7 because, we're running short on sports right now. We're getting into the lean months of the sports calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a listen to this real quick. What a great TV show this was.
Mays, 6. Harmon Killebrew, 6. Now let's take time out for a moment. Willie, we're going into the top half of the 9th inning, all tied up at 6-6.
Seemed like bad news at ninth inning, Mark.
Harmon Killebrew, the batter. High fly ball into left center field, way back near the tower, way back, and hits the top and bounces back in. 1-1. It bounced straight up. It looked like it was going over. It came down just barely inside. It's an out.
You know what's amazing about Home Run Derby? That show was so good.
Yes.
Black and white, Godfather. I can't believe that they had the wherewithal to be able to put together a Home Run Derby made for television event back in the day.
Yeah, that was filmed in Hollywood. It was filmed at what was then called Wrigley Field. It was owned by the Wrigley family in L.A.
Oh, it was in L.A.?
Yeah.
I thought it was in Chicago because of the ivy on the walls.
The ivy walls, but it was, I think it's where the Hollywood stars of the Pacific Coast League played. And, they filmed the whole series there. It was the biggest favorite among kids. I mean, all your baseball friends watched that thing religiously every week. And it was before the era of color television, Chad. Sorry, everything was black and white at that time.
I watched that show religiously when I was younger. I'd get home from school, and I knew Home Run Derby was coming on, so I had to watch.
TBS carried it, didn't they? Weren't they carrying it?
I honestly don't remember which network I watched it on.
Well, see, that was not the original airing of it. It had aired earlier than that, but they brought it back. Somebody told me they did. By the way, I got to correct myself. My friend Mike Clapton sent me a text. McDavid has 8 points in the last 2 days. I forgot that empty netter he got late in the game. Anyway.
It's always nice to have people correct you on the fly like that.
Well, that's okay. I appreciate it. I don't want to be wrong.
I don't think you do.
I don't want to cheat the guy out of a point. You know?
Yeah, I don't think you want to be corrected, but it happens all the time. Like I forgot Kurt Schilling's name, so I called him the bloody sock guy.
Yeah, and I let it go because I thought it was funny. He called him the bloody sock guy.
Well, I got my point across.
Yeah, here's a guy who's not in the Hall of Fame because of his political beliefs, which is a wrong thing. They keep him out.
Sean and Sandy has chimed back in. Anybody that brings up Bob Gibson gets to hear me bring up Portland native Mickey Lolich, who won 3 games in the 68 World Series and beat Bob Gibson in Game 7.
Yep.
I knew a lady that was like my mother to me who knew Mickey from Northwest Portland where she grew up downtown.
I knew Mickey.
Oh, you did?
I took him fishing the first time in his life he ever went fishing, yes.
The first time he'd ever been fishing?
Yeah, me and Tom Derry.
What were you fishing for?
Trout. Yeah, out in the Molalla River. My friend Tom had a cabin out there, and we took him out there. We rode in his convertible, 3 of us in the front seat of a Corvette convertible.
I learn something new every day. The Godfather out fishing. I never would have known that you did something like that.
I used to fish off the back deck of the houseboat all the time. Mickey, hey, Mickey's a Portlander, Lincoln High School, 3 games in that series. That was the year Denny McClain won 31 games for the Tigers, but they skipped him to bring Lolich back in Game 7 because he had pitched so well in that series.
All right, when we come back, the best job in America is to be a fired coach. Trust me. All right, 4 o'clock chat here from the NBA. The Pistons have fired Monty Williams. They still owe him $65 million. The Pacers have extended Pascal Siakam to a max, $189.5 million. The NBA draft's going to be on Wednesday of next week. Our coverage will start at 3 live from Moda Center from the Trailblazers draft party, and will continue throughout the night, concluding with Joe Cronin's presser. Here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Bad news for the LA Sparks. Rookie Cameron Brink has suffered a torn ACL. Mariners lead the AL West by 10 games. They're at Cleveland right now. Bobby Wu on the bump. Checking the College World Series scoreboard. I'll get you an update on that in just a moment. We're going to give away 2 4-packs of tickets for the Portland Thorns, which is coming up here at 4:20. Your chance to win is on the Rip City Drive. All right, the College World Series scoreboard. Florida took out Kentucky today, 15-4 in an elimination game. In the double elimination round, Tennessee has taken out Florida State 7-2, and coming up at 4:55, Texas A&M and Florida will meet to see who continues on, and that's the latest in the College World Series. Who do you think is going to come out on top? Tennessee?
Probably number 1 seed. They're really rolling right now, it looks like.
All right. The best job in America right now is to be a fired coach from pick your sport. Jimbo Fisher got paid out many millions of dollars, more than you could possibly imagine, to leave Texas A&M, so he's out. And he can even take another job, and they still have to pay him the entire amount, which is wildly fascinating.
Yeah, they have no setbacks on that contract.
So
Amazing.
Monty was fired in Phoenix, and I think they owed him in excess of, 20? I think it might have been 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah, huge number. Now, he didn't have the same deal as Jimbo, so I think that money was offset when he took the job in Detroit.
Yeah.
But the Pistons owe him $65 million. Now, we've talked about coaches and how they're insane, right? They want to continue to work for some stupid reason. Look, Monty, I'm not here to tell you how to live your life, but you have a $65 million payout. You don't have to work again. You don't have to coach again. You don't have to stay up late at night trying to figure out how to set up your pick and roll defense. You don't have to coach bad franchises like Detroit anymore. You can head off into the sunset and do whatever you want. Go live your life, bro.
Yeah, but don't you think there's a temptation there, Chad, to see how much he could make getting fired from another job?
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I'll get hired. I know they're not going to keep me for more than a year or two, and then I'm out. More money.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable to me.
It almost makes me feel like, how bad was he for a franchise like that that's not doing well anyway, not drawing a great amount of people? They owe the guy $65 million for not coaching. That must have been a real disaster last year, over and above all the losses, which they lost a zillion. They didn't win any games in November last year at all.
Yeah. So for a franchise like Detroit to get rid of Monty Williams with that type of money that they owe him, there must have been complaints from players, right?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Now, who's that guy, the smart guy from Duke, Trajan Langdon?
Yeah.
Is he going to make the next coaching hire?
Yeah, it's his deal now. That's
Okay.
what he wants, I'm sure.
Just a question from a speculative mind. We know that Chauncey Billups' agent has been busy to let people know he would have interest in this job or that job, depending on what happens with the Trailblazers, because we don't expect him to be back after next season, this upcoming season. And the Blazers have not picked up that final year option on his contract. It would seem to me that Chauncey coaching the Detroit Pistons would make a lot of sense. He would be embraced immediately by the franchise.
And I think that's a franchise that needs that. They need positive PR after last season. They need to bring back somebody who was NBA Finals MVP the year they won a championship. And he's a very popular guy in Detroit. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was a candidate for that job.
It would be hard, it would seem, to find a guy to want to take that job in Detroit. And they're not going to want to pay big money to the next coach, right? Because they owe Monty $1 billion. Yeah. Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah. Your coaching budget's been blown out of the water already. So you can't be spending a lot on the next one.
How do we get into coaching and get that type of gig?
I don't think we do, Chad.
We don't?
No, I don't think we do.
And what was it you told me yesterday that you had a chance to get into coaching?
No, it wasn't coaching. It was running a team, general manager of a team. Class A, California League.
I think your pops, he must have valued a college education a great deal to steer you away from that, taking that gig.
I was the first one in the family to get one.
Oh, to get a degree?
Yeah, that was a big deal.
But think about this. If you would have taken that job, you could have transitioned into the majors and then gotten one of these sweet deals and then gotten fired and had a lot of free time and a bunch of money to go out and hang out wherever you want in the sunshine.
Yeah, I would guess it wouldn't have been hard for me to get fired, at least. It might have been hard to get that job in the first place. That's the hard part. Getting fired is the easy part. Reminds me of George Costanza in that Seinfeld episode where he kept trying to get fired.
And he couldn't get fired.
He couldn't. Yeah. When you want to get fired, it's hard, I guess.
My favorite story in regards to Larry David, I think we've talked about this, but he got so fed up at Saturday Night Live because they wouldn't pick his material for the skits, right? So he got in a hissy one day and just took off.
Yeah.
And then he got to talking with his neighbor, and he's like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And he's like, well, just show back up. Did you tell anyone you were quitting? Just show up and act like nothing happened. He showed up like he didn't even walk out on the job, and nothing happened. He just kept working.
It became that episode on Seinfeld where Costanza got fired, and he just, on Monday, showed up. And
like it was no big deal.
Oh, you didn't think that was real, did you? I was just kidding around.
Gosh. Can you believe that?
No. I think Saturday Night Live at that point was probably so drug-infused that people probably properly couldn't even remember what happened on Friday.
What do you think is the best type of job for Chauncey after Portland? Is it a young team? Is it a veteran team? Like, what's the best transition for Chauncey if this is indeed his final year in Portland?
I think he's got to go somewhere where they're trying to win. And maybe he has the tools to win. I don't know that Detroit would be best in that regard.
Oh, no, you're going to.
They're terrible.
No, they're hideous.
They're terrible. So
you're just going to add 100 more losses to your tally.
Yeah, and they're so unlucky. I mean, they get in that lottery every year. They're supposed to have the top pick, and they end up outside the top three.
Well, what's so dumb about the NBA system with their lottery and the way that, the worst record's not guaranteed the top pick? It has not stopped tanking whatsoever.
No.
Teams still tank and lose a bunch of games to try and improve their lottery position in hopes that they can get the number one pick. It has not worked out maybe the way they thought it would.
And they thought the play-in would solve some of that too, but it really hasn't.
Oh, speaking of that, what you commented on it
I
today.
brought up a sore subject there, didn't I?
No, ESPN put out a tweet with a split picture of the Celtics winning their championship and the Lakers winning the in-season tournament and said, 2 iconic franchises bring home trophies this year. It is so dumb that people try to pretend like that in-season tournament means anything. It means nothing. Absolutely nothing. And LeBron popping champagne after they won the in-season tournament is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. That was fake. That was pathetic.
For sure.
I hate it when someone tries to build something up to make it seem like it matters when we all know that it doesn't matter. The in-season tournament means zero, zilcho, nothing.
And wait till next year, because supposedly they're going to try to put even more at stake in that in-season tournament.
At stake in terms of what, dollars?
In terms of what you get if you win. I think they've talked about maybe a little bit of an edge in the playoffs somehow.
Oh, gosh, no. The edge in the playoffs?
Yeah, like maybe you get an automatic berth or something.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really good. Way to screw up your whole league.
Yeah. Beat out a team that deserves to be in the playoffs just because you won a bunch of meaningless games in November.
I'm surprised they don't offer up like, hey, if you win the in-season tournament, each and every player on your team gets a Monty Williams-type golden parachute to ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
That would motivate guys.
Yeah, it would.
$65 million to every player, guaranteed if you win the in-season tournament. No questions asked. Then I would play like it was the NBA championship on the line.
For me, if you've already got those TV deals settled, if they're already agreed upon, forget the in-season tournament. You were just trying it to increase the value of the TV package. You got what you wished for.
Now just get rid of the tournament.
Yeah, junk that thing.
No one cares about that.
Yeah.
2 iconic franchises take home trophies this year.
Yeah.
What?
Call up the junk man, have him haul it off. Hitch the trailer up and just haul the whole thing off.
Do you think Larry Bird would pop champagne after winning the in-season tournament?
He wouldn't even want to be in it. He'd be embarrassed.
He might pick it. I'm out. I'm not playing in this ridiculous joke
My back's
of a
sore.
in-season tournament. Yeah, I'm gonna get my back. I can't do it. I just don't like it, man. It's pathetic. Commissioner Silver is a clown. He's a clown, Godfather.
Do you think they're going to put a banner up for that?
I refuse to believe that Jeannie Buss would raise a banner because her dad would never do that.
No.
Dr. Jerry Buss is not raising a banner for in-season tournament. You can't do that if you're a franchise that's won as many titles as they have. You can't be raising banners for in-season tournaments, although the NBA might try to pressure him in doing it to make it seem like it matters.
I think that's what they might do. But
like on opening night, they raised the banner for the in-season tournament, hand out fake rings.
Iconic franchises don't do such things.
No, you shouldn't. So, no, just on the basis of Jeannie Buss being Jeannie Buss, I refuse to believe it.
Yeah.
And if it happens, it will be a travesty. It would be a travesty. I just don't like Adam Silver trying so hard to make his league like soccer. Makes me sick to my stomach. It's not. You're not soccer. You're the NBA.
Yeah.
The second season and the journey and the marathon to get to the NBA Finals and win a championship is what makes the league so special. The championship matters so much in the NBA because it is a grinder to get there and win. Because you play 82 games and then you got to play 7 times 4. You got to, potentially 28 more games to win a title.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, at minimum, you got to win what? So it's 7.
You got to get 16 wins.
Is it 16? Yeah, 4 series times 4, 16 wins.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's special. Just like baseball, man. It's a grind to get through the season and get to a World Series and win a championship.
Yeah.
And don't cheapen your league by adding some type of stupid tournament.
Well,
and whatever.
Talk about stupid. Your regular season games randomly count as tournament games. I mean, you go to a game, you don't even know. Wait a second. Tonight's some sort of tournament game? People don't even know. It's just so ridiculous.
I know. All right, when we come back, we have 2 4-packs of tickets for the Thorns.
Yes.
We'll talk about, with the draft coming up next week, it's only important that we relive some of the worst decisions in Trailblazer history. Come on, Stu Inman. Where's that? I got that article, too. I'll find it. I got the article on the Larry Bird story in addition to the MJ whiff.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't need MJ because they already had Clyde Drexler. Really? Yeah, because you wouldn't want Clyde and MJ on your team. Why would you want that? Bobby Knight had some good advice for Stu Inman, didn't he?
He did.
All right, so we'll get to that. We have a Bo Nix update. We'll hear from Cortland Sutton. And then Angel Reese. Say what you want, but she's the real deal.
Enforcer.
Unapologetic in terms of how she's taken over the league. So we'll get to that as well. You got the Rip City Drive. Hey, Godfather, it's almost ridiculous how good this song is.
Yeah, yeah. These guys sound as good as they've ever sounded, Chad.
And by the way, if you can stop sending me any type of videos and updates on Don Henley, I'd appreciate it. You're not helping me, man.
I'll take that under consideration, Chad.
No, but seriously, you're not helping me. You're hurting me, all right?
Well, there seems to be some degree of question whether or not I should try to help you or hurt you sometimes, you know? Sometimes you need that hurt. You just need to reinforce it.
This song here, Boys of Summer, it's one of Don Henley's best from his solo career. The way I understand the story is that Mike Campbell, who was a longtime bandmate, guitarist for, who's the guy who looks like John Elway? Tom Petty. He would put together tracks and record them, right? Make tapes and put together tracks. And then he would present them to Tom, and Tom would go through and listen to them and pick and choose what tracks, he wanted to use. Well, Petty heard this track that Campbell had put together, and he passed on it.
Wow.
Well,
that's a mistake.
Campbell later had played it for Don, and Don's like, hey, what's that? And so Don was listening and thought, hey, I can do something with that. And that's where Henley went and put together the lyrics, and then the rest is history. It became on to be a huge hit. Great video back in the day, and was part of that Building the Beast album. It's just amazing to me how a great artist can hear a track that's iconic or turns out to be iconic, but for whatever reason, it doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a big coup for Campbell, who at the time I think was, he hadn't made big money yet. So the financial boom from having Henley make a smash hit out of one of his tracks turned out to be a good deal for him.
So he didn't supply the words. Henley did the
lyrics.
The lyrics. Wow.
And Henley is he's known for being a pretty darn good songwriter.
Yeah.
Putting his lyrics together.
You almost have to be a bit of a poet to do song lyrics.
I know. I would say songwriting as a whole is one of the most awesome things. Like, I would love to sit down with a couple of songwriters and I love talking to them about their process. How do you come up with this idea? How did this song come to be? How did you get to here? It just blows me away. Like, I told you that story about Human Nature that turned out to be a smash hit for Michael Jackson. It was Steve Porcaro, who was part of Toto. He had went to pick up his daughter from school. This is during the time that he was working on the Thriller album.
Mm-hmm.
And his daughter was on the playground, and she was playing with a boy, and he, pushed her down or whatever. And, because a lot of times kids, when they're younger, they'll push you or...
Yeah, it's playground stuff.
Playground stuff, they'll do things because they like you, but they don't want to say they like you.
I remember those days, yeah.
Well, she ended up asking her dad, why did he push me down? And he said, that's just human nature. And then, of course, like most songwriters, as soon as he said that, he's like, that was the seed. And then he went home and started immediately putting together, some, piano stuff and different things. And so he recorded the song, the track, and he had put together some lyrics. It's just a rough little play. And he recorded it on a tape that he had in studio. And it was on the B side, right? Because David Page, who was also working on the Thriller album, had put all the stuff on the A side, and he just needed a track. So he got the B side on a tape, and he put together the track. And anyways, what Quincy Jones was doing, the mastermind behind Thriller, who worked with Michael Jackson, David Page would send over, Quincy would send a runner over to David's house there in California to pick up the tapes so he could take them over to Quincy and Quincy could listen to them. Well, back in the early 80s, they had just come up with the tape player that had the auto reverse, right? So you remember with a cassette player, you used to have to take the tape and pull it out and flip it over when it was done. Well, with the auto reverse, you didn't have to flip it over. Mm-hmm. So Quincy put in side A of one of these tapes that Page had put together. He was listening as he was doing other stuff, didn't hear a thing on side A that he liked. Well, it kicked over to side B where Porcaro had recorded this song that he had created, Human Nature, after his daughter got pushed down at the playground. And Quincy immediately called Page as soon as he started hearing Human Nature. He's like, hey, what's this? It's unbelievable. He's like, I didn't write that. I have no idea what you're talking about. Let me talk to Picaro about that. And he asked Picaro, and he's like, hey, I think this is good. We want to use it. And then there you go. That's how it happened. Only because Quincy had auto reverse. If the cassette player did not have auto reverse, he would have never heard side B and would have never had that song presented to him. And Picaro would not have presented Human Nature to Quincy Jones because he had just written it, and he was just coming up with ideas. There you go. That's why we need to talk to more songwriters.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, who can we get?
Well, we can reach out.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
But, of course, you got to have inspiration. From my experience with music, the best things that create the best music are either highly emotional political times, like the Vietnam War and strife within the country like we had back in the 60s. But
or love, right?
The best formula.
Yeah.
Love gone right or love gone wrong.
Right, either way.
Either way. It's the best. Love.
Not
Relationship.
Yeah.
Most songs, most great songs, it's about some form of a relationship that's gone either really good or really bad.
Then it usually takes somebody sitting at a piano just playing.
Yeah.
Or somebody at a guitar just churning out different licks that, what sounds good.
Yep. That's why I love hearing about the stories about how these things come to be.
I would just worry. Would you worry? I mean, you're sitting there messing around with your guitar, churning out things. I would be so worried. There have been so many songs that you've heard in your lifetime. It'd be so easy to just say, hey, this sounds good. But you actually heard it 10 years ago when somebody else did it.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't actually be intending to copy anything, but it would just happen.
Yeah. Or that happens a lot in the comic world, too, with comedians, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are a lot of comedians who actively steal material.
Yeah.
But what happens is if you go to a lot of different shows or comedy clubs, you could hear an idea and it just becomes planted in your mind to where you start working on something that wasn't originally your own. That's crazy. In fact, I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day. I guess Robin Williams was known as the guy who stole a lot of material back in the day.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird because what Rogan was saying is that when it comes to music, if you steal a track or a song, you get hammered for it and you got to pay royalties on that. But in comedy, there's no recourse.
Fair game, right?
Yeah.
Well, they used to say in the old days, Milton Berle was the guy that did that all the time. He was very well known for that.
Yeah, thieving other people's stuff.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. And Rogan said he would just, if he heard someone taking his material, he's like, yeah, don't do that anymore. He wouldn't get physical with him, but he's a big dude, so he just let him know, like, yeah, that's my bit. Please don't use my stuff anymore. It sucks you have to do that. I'll tell you what else sucks is reliving the Trailblazers draft disasters in the past.
God.
I want to start with this before we get to Michael Jordan, but this piece I've saved.
Yeah.
I think this is from the Oregonian back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
This involves my favorite basketball player of all time. Here's what the title of the little piece here says, Blazers to draft Bird. The Portland Trailblazers might draft Indiana State's high-scoring Larry Bird in Friday's National Basketball Association draft, but they won't wait until next year to sign him. That's what from Stu Inman, the Blazers player personnel director, said Tuesday. Quote, I just don't think we will draft a player who will not join our team right away, Inman said. Rumors linking the Blazers and the 6'9" junior have made the rounds the past week. A Los Angeles newspaper published a story predicting that Portland would draft Bird and would wait until he finished his senior year before signing him. Quote, I've heard the rumors, and that's just what they are, rumors, Inman said. But Inman admitted the Blazers might be leaning toward Bird over 6'9.5" Michael Thompson of Minnesota. Portland finished with the NBA's best regular season record, 58-24, but the third-round pick in the draft because of a trade that sent Moses Malone to Buffalo. There you go. We could have had Bird, but why?
Yeah, I also heard that Bird put the word out. He was going to Boston, and if you drafted him, it was a wasted draft pick. He wasn't going to sign with you. I don't know. He didn't. Players didn't have any leverage in those days. He probably couldn't make that stick.
Dang it! All right.
No big deal. They could have done without Larry Bird just fine.
Yeah, just fine. All right. The next thing that we got to deal with, and this is unfortunate, but the Blazers also had a chance to draft Michael Jordan. But from what I've heard back in that time is that the reason why they didn't take him is because they needed a center and they already had Clyde Drexler.
Right.
What was Bobby Knight's advice to Stu Inman at the time, who had coached Michael Jordan on the '84 Olympic team?
Yeah, he just come back from the Olympic pre-camp. They had a get-together and everything, and he told him, you better take this guy. And then Inman said, well, we need a center. Bob Knight said, well, then play him at center.
That was Bobby Knight's advice.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the center position. Just put MJ in there.
Yeah.
I think Knight was impressed with Michael on the Olympic team.
Yeah. He turned out to be the best player on that team. And I don't know that people were actually expecting that because he wasn't the most heralded member of that team. But all of a sudden he blossomed and, oh, my.
But it just goes to show you, like, one good decision or one bad decision in the draft can dramatically change the fortunes of your franchise.
Well, they used to, when they talked about players that could have been trailblazers, there's another one that's really a sore subject, and that is Moses Malone, who they actually had. They got him in the ABA dispersal draft. He was in camp with Walton and with the Blazers, with Maurice Lucas and all the other ABA guys. They had Twardzik and Lucas from the ABA. Ramsey didn't want to keep him. He didn't want to keep him because he already had Walton, and he wasn't sure Moses could. How am I going to say this? He wasn't sure Moses could handle their offense and be a part of that and be able to run their offense. And huge mistake.
Yeah.
Huge mistake.
No disrespect to Dr. Jack, but I think Moses could have handled whatever you threw at him.
Well, and would there have ever been a better center to have a good backup to than Moses Malone? Who knows how many championships they could have won. And they could have played together, really.
Okay, that's enough of draft history.
You don't want to relive it.
No, I don't want to
anymore,
relive it anymore, no. But the draft's going to be on Wednesday. The Blazers have pick 7, pick 14. They've got some second-round action. And we're going to talk with Brad Botkin at 5:20 to put a bow on the NBA season. We do have 2 4-packs of tickets to give away. Portland Thorns, who are going to be playing at Providence Park on August 30th. If you would like a 4-pack of tickets, we got 2 of them. So we'll take the first 2 callers through. Call now, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. That's your telephone number. Call now. Fire away with your calls. If you'd like a 4-pack of tickets for the Thorns, we have 2 of them, 503-248-0620, 503-248-0620. August 30th, Providence Park. Now, we do have a Bo Nix update. I want you to,
all right.
I've got a comment from Zach Allen, their defensive end. But first, let's take a listen to their best receiver, Cortland Sutton, just talking about what he sees in terms of overall maturity.
Yeah, man, he's a very mature individual. You know, for a rookie, he has an aura about himself that he carries himself in a way that you kind of expect quarterbacks to carry themselves. You know, I think he has a really good room to lean on. You know, Zach Wilson being a guy that was drafted in the first round, I think he was like the number 2 overall pick in his draft. Having Jared, Jared's a guy that he's a student of the game. You know, somebody that was able to learn behind Russ last year and to pick his brain on some of the things that he does well. And I think Bo is embracing where he is. I think that he's embracing the expectation that is coming with him being, a first-round pick quarterback. I think they said we haven't drafted a first-round quarterback since Paxton, right? And so, I think he's embracing it. He's not wearing it as a burden. He's carrying it with a lot of pride and he carries himself with a lot of maturity. And that was like the first thing I noticed about him was his maturity level of how he's carrying himself. And I think he's gonna surprise a lot of people.
All right, there's Cortland Sutton. Now, in addition to that, Zach Allen, who is one of their veteran defensive ends who came over from Arizona before last year, he said, quote, yeah, I think he's really mature. Obviously, for a rookie, the way he just conducts himself on and off the field is really impressive. And he's just a great guy, great player, and that's all you can ask for. And then there is the actual on-field work for Bo Nix. Obviously, it's early, and I won't say I'm a quarterback genius, so I'm not going to act like I know what I'm looking at, but there's definitely some throws that are really impressive. I'm excited to see how this plays out. So there you go. That's pretty impressive. The two vets on the team,
Yeah.
well-respected vets. You know, normally veterans aren't quick to praise rookies, but the fact that they come out acknowledging that Bo, in terms of his work, the way he conducts himself, that shows you that he's put himself in a position to where these guys appreciate him, but will play hard for him.
Yeah, and I think if you want to be a starting quarterback as a rookie, it's best to act like one. And I think he's got that part down. He's acting like a mature veteran guy who isn't worried about anything. He's gonna be what he's gonna be. Confidence, maturity, just knowing how to get along with teammates. I think he's passed that test already with his teammates.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on Bo as he continues to prep for his first year in the NFL. But I love hearing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because for rookies, vets don't want a guy that comes in and is like arrogant or I got this or whatever. No, they just want the guy to put his head down and get to work. And how you conduct yourself on and off the field, as we've talked about with quarterbacks, every eyeball on the team is on you, especially as an number one pick.
Yeah, and you have to be confident. That's the only way your team's going to be confident. You have to show that, hey, it's going to work out, guys. We're going to win some games.
Yeah, we're going to be fine here. I got this. I'm going to work my ass off. And guys will respect that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, real quick on Angel Reese. You know, we saw the antics over the weekend on Sunday in that the highest-rated WNBA game in 23 years with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese battling. And of course, Angel Reese had that hard foul on her where she took a swipe at the ball and missed the ball but clocked Caitlin Clark upside the dome. Apex Jones put out this tweet and says, say what you want about Angel Reese, but just know she's a real one. Her fans love her because she walks the talk and ducks nothing. She's all effort and muddies up the game. Naz Hamilton is the same kind of tough, so this clash was inevitable. And they were talking about, you know, her play last night. But, look, there's a lot of people who don't like Angel Reese because of the way she deals with Caitlin Clark. But I think what we're learning with Angel Reese is that she doesn't care. It's not just about Caitlin Clark. She's out there. She understands who she is. She's confident in who she is and what type of player she wants to be, and she's going out there to make that happen.
Yeah, she's an equal opportunity enforcer. She's not playing favorites here. She's getting everybody a chance to get pushed around. That's what she's doing. She's pushed him around. She's bodying up on him. She's playing the tough guy, and it's working for her. And that's fine. That's a role, I think, in that league that probably isn't filled on every team. So she's a bit of a unique player right now in the WNBA, and that's going to work for her.
But you know what's great? Like, Clark and Reese are two totally different types of players. Mm-hmm. But Reese going out there and being tough, being an enforcer, gobbling up rebounds, and doing it her way, she'll earn respect from her teammates. Caitlin Clark, continuing to improve, great passer, gets her teammates involved, can shoot the basketball, is really steered clear of any type of controversy and handles herself with a certain level of humility and class. She'll also earn the respect of her teammates by doing it that way.
Yeah.
I kind of like to see that.
I do too.
But that rivalry right there between Reese and Caitlin, as it continues to unfold, could be very big for the league because people are going to want to see that, Godfather.
Yeah, you would think.
Now, one issue for the NBA, check this out. The 2024 NBA playoffs saw a significant decline in viewership compared to 2023, with ratings dropping by 11% to 2.4 and viewership by 12% to 4.53 million. Quote, nonetheless, the finals has now gone 5 years without a single game hitting the 14 million mark, a figure that even the World Series has reached more recently, Game 6 in 2021. So the NBA, you know, we crack on Adam Silver for being a buffoon and being too soft on the players, but the owners probably love him because he's still able to somehow go out and get massive, TV deals with NBC, Amazon, and Disney.
He took those meager ratings down again and got even more money. It's a pretty incredible thing. People are trying to get shows, good movies, good everything on TV, and they can't get on there. But he can take that product and get it on, even when the ratings aren't so hot.
Oh, speaking of that, so this Axel F, Beverly Hills Cop 4 that's coming out.
Yeah.
Very excited to see it. I read last night that Eddie Murphy, I mean, he passed on like 6 or 7 scripts. He was only going to do the remake, another movie, if the script was right, because he didn't want it to be a garbage film like Beverly Hills Cop 3, which was awful.
Yeah.
Well, the movie's getting ready to come out, but it's on Netflix. And from what I can tell, it's only going to be on Netflix. Like, it's not going to be in the theaters.
Right.
That's a travesty. I want to see that film on the big screen. Because certain films, I mean, movies are great at home, but not as good if you're watching it on the big screen with the screen and the sound and everything like that. So I'm a little disappointed that I'm not going to be able to go to the theater to watch it.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
I don't know. You need to get a bigger screen at home, Chad. Get a little surround sound. Bulk that up a little bit.
That's not what I'm talking about. I don't care how
I
big
know.
your screen is at home, unless you have a home theater.
I know.
Do you have a home theater?
No.
Yeah, of course not.
But see, I think some movies are more suited to theaters than others. And I think they feel, hey, this is not a big adventure film. This is not Top Gun. This is not that kind of film where you need all that stuff. And it's probably, but they'll make more money without the theaters, I bet.
What? Why would they make more money without the theaters?
Because I think you're going to see the Netflix subscriptions go way up for that. And they've got a deal with Netflix, who paid to have the movie made, probably. So Netflix will get a big benefit out of it.
I know, but the experience will be better at the theater.
Yeah, I agree. They're worried
Never
about
mind.
making,
You don't
they're worried
care about
making
my
money.
problem
No, it's
with
not that
Beverly
I
Hills
know.
Cop
I'm just
4.
trying to explain it to you. Everybody's worried about making the money. That's the big deal. And
But if
I
you
think that there are
distribute it to the theaters to where more people can see it, why wouldn't you make more money that way?
Well, I think because people aren't going to theater as often, they'll wait for it to come out on the internet.
Well, I think the reason why people aren't going to the theaters as much now is because lately Hollywood's been, they've been garbage.
Yeah.
There haven't been a lot of great movies out.
Yeah, we've always kind of gone through those spells where we have a time where
But
it's up
most people
or it's down.
agree that this is one of the worst times in Hollywood history.
Yeah.
It's almost like they've run out of ideas, and so they're coming up with a bunch of bad remake ideas.
Well, they're competing with Netflix. And Netflix is apparently making the producers a better deal than what the big producers are doing for Hollywood.
That still doesn't answer my question as to why they wouldn't want that in the theater, though. It's a better experience than watching it at home.
Yeah.
Don't you enjoy a good movie on the big screen more so than watching it at home?
Yeah. Yeah. I prefer it. If it's a movie I really want to see, I'd much rather see it in a theater. Much rather.
I don't even remember the last movie I saw in the theater.
Really?
Huh.
Oh,
Maverick?
you must have seen Top Gun.
Well, I did. But I don't remember what movie I've seen. There hasn't been a movie that I've been dying to go see since that one came out. Can you imagine if they wouldn't have had Maverick in the theaters? That would have sucked, too. That was a great movie. Did you like that one?
Yeah. I wasn't in love with it like you were, but it was all right.
Never mind.
Hey, it didn't win any Oscar. It wasn't
So
the
what?
best
A lot of the
picture.
movies that win Oscars suck, too.
No, most of them don't.
But you still watch the Oscars, don't you?
Absolutely.
Oh, gosh.
Got to.
Why do you have to?
Because you want to know who won. And there's always somebody screwing up or saying the wrong thing, or streaking it or whatever. There's always something fun going on.
All right. When we come back, Angel Reese is the real deal. Also, Joe Mazzulla. We got to give more credit to him. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, real quick, Godfather, before we hear from Joe Mazzulla. I read this piece off a Deadline, and it says, with Apple and Amazon Studios embracing theatrical distribution to enhance their content on streaming, is Netflix far behind? And according to Bella Baria, who is the chief content officer for Netflix, Bella says, quote, we're the only real pure play streamer, and our members love films and they want to see films on Netflix. I think a lot of companies and businesses do theatrical, and it's a great business for them. It's just not our business. Our business is to make sure that members come to Netflix, they're in the mood for a movie, and they get that movie that they want to see, and that it's always going to be the focus for us, making great movies for Netflix that members will want to see. There you go. All right. Well, I'm going to watch the film regardless, whether I have to watch it at home or watch it in the theater. I just would prefer to. And the reason why I feel that way, Godfather, is because certain movies that are a big deal to me, I want the experience of going to the theater.
Yeah.
I don't go to the theater very often anymore.
Yeah.
So when I do go, if there's certain movies, I'm like, oh, I want to go see that. There's not too many movies like that. But I grew up a big fan of Axel Foley and Beverly Hills Cop. 1 and 2. The 3 is like, well, it's like Rocky 5. It never happened. So you just forget about that one. But, I mean, those movies are funny. So I'm hoping that this one is going to be good. I don't like remakes like this new Happy Gilmore that's going to come out. I'm all for it as long as it doesn't suck. I don't like great franchises to be tainted by a bad film.
That's another Netflix feature, I think, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think it is.
Netflix?
Because I think he has a long-term contract with Netflix. They're making most of his movies now, I think.
All right, let's take a listen to Joe Mazzulla, who you and I have, well, we have to give props to because the guy coached his tail off this year, improved dramatically from last year, and his team just won the championship. But this goes back to being the real deal. I don't care who you are, how you operate, but if you're real and genuine, people will follow you, especially if you're a leader. And Joe Mazzulla is that. In fact, he never gives the media what they want. He just answers the way that he truly sees it. And here he is being asked about how he deals with the pressure of the NBA Finals and so forth. Take a listen to this beauty by Joe Mazzulla.
Is there something you're doing over the last 48 hours to keep yourself away from just being consumed with this? Are you watching different movies?
Honestly, I met 3 girls under the age of 21 with terminal cancer. And I thought I was helping them by talking to them, and they were helping me. And so having an understanding about what life is really all about and watching a girl dying and smiling and enjoying her life, that's what it's really all about, and having that faith. You know, the other thing is you always hear people, give glory to God and say thank you when they're holding a trophy. But you never really hear it in times like this. And so for me, it's an opportunity to just sit right where I'm at and just be faithful. That's what it's about.
Wow. I'm never going to refer to him as Mazzulla Montana ever again.
Oh,
He's Joe Mazzulla, head coach of the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
He's the real deal.
Very profound, actually. It's not what the media wants to hear usually because, and I'll say it, religion's kind of out right now. You know, nobody wants, they don't want to hear it. They're concerned about it.
They don't want to hear about your faith or your belief in Jesus. They don't want to hear about how you read the Bible or this. They don't care about that.
Yeah.
But Joe Mazzulla, he shares exactly what he believes and how he sees it. And that was a terrific answer. But again, if you're real and you walk the walk.
Yeah. You're not embarrassed or shy about that at all.
People will embrace you because they know you're the real deal.
Yeah.
Brad Stevens knew what he had. We didn't know what he had, but he knew exactly what he had and had no issue elevating him to head coach.
Yeah, it appears the right guy got the coaching job.
Unbelievable. All right, we'll come back on the Rip City Drive, and when we do, we're going to turn our attention to Willie Mays, the great who passed away. And then at 5:20, Brad Botkin of CBS Sports will join us to put a bow on the NBA season. Hope you're enjoying the beautiful weather. It's cold in the studio, but it's like 80-plus and sunny outside.
Thanks for reminding me.
Golf course will be beautiful tomorrow morning. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, 5 o'clock chat here, checking the College World Series scoreboard, top of the first. Texas A&M and Florida scoreless in a double elimination game. Earlier, Florida eliminated Kentucky 15-4, and Tennessee topped Florida State 7-2. Checking the Major League scoreboard right now, Mariners trail the Guardians 1-0 in the bottom of the second. Seattle has a 10-game lead in the AL West. Elsewhere from the NBA, the Pistons have fired Monty Williams. They still owe him $65 million. Pascal Siakam has agreed to a max extension, $189.5 million with the Pacers. And the draft's going to be coming up next Wednesday. Our coverage will start at 3 live from Motor Center for the Trailblazers draft party. And we'll continue through the night, concluding with Joe Cronin's presser here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. We'll talk NBA with Brad Bach and CBS Sports at 520. All right, Brad Bakken will join us coming up at 520. All right, Godfather, you got to reset the story of that time you drove down to San Francisco at a young age and snuck into Candlestick Park to see Willie.
Well, yeah, here's the deal. I mean, I had been clubhouse boy with my friend Mike Clopton for a few years, and we knew a lot of AAA players who had a tendency to go to the big leagues. And we had one who was playing for the Cincinnati Reds at that time, and he was going to leave us tickets that day. A ticket for us, and then Mike's mom was with us. So he was going to leave 3 tickets. As it turned out, he forgot. He forgot to leave the ticket.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. So we were able, from the ticket office, to call into the visiting clubhouse, and they put him on the phone, which try doing that nowadays, right? But, yeah. But they were used to play. The part of the reason is they're used to players forgetting to put people on the pass list because they do that, and so we got him, and the end result was it's too late. The pass list has already gone up, but come around to the clubhouse, and it's down the right field line. Come down the clubhouse, and I'll take you through the clubhouse, and you can just go out on the field and then jump into the grandstand. So Mike and I went through the clubhouse, which was an experience in itself. And there was a hallway, a pathway up to the visitors' bullpen, and which was kind of on the field in those days. And we opened the door. I had never been to a big league ballpark at that time. This is my first time. Open the door, and here we are out on the field. The combination of the smells of the ballpark, the color in the ballpark, and the sounds of the ballpark was incredible. It was like overpowering. I was about 15 years old.
It's like the most beautiful thing you'd ever seen.
Yeah, I was 15 or 16, probably still 15, I think. And it was the most incredible sight I've ever seen. I just stood there in awe. And Mike and I stood there and just, it's like, whoa, this is pretty cool. And I think Cincinnati was the Giants were finishing up with batting practice, getting ready for infield practice or something. So the guy that got us in there said, now all you have to do is stand on this bench. It was the bullpen bench, and just climb up into the stands. I thought, yeah, well, some security guard is going to, stop that. But we did as he said. We just climbed up in the stands. Never heard anything from anybody. We just got away with it, walked up, and then Mike's mother got in the game somehow. I think she probably had to buy a ticket. But then we met up and found a seat. It wasn't one of those nights where there were a lot of people at the game. We also learned our lesson about Candlestick Park because it was very nice weather when we arrived and when we went up into the stands. By the end of the game, it was like the Arctic. It used to get so cold in there. The winds would come in off the bay. It was terrible. But it was our first big league game, and we had a great time.
That's awesome.
We saw Willie, which was really cool. Really cool.
And that's a memory that you'll have forever. First time
Oh,
you had a chance
man.
to walk out and see that ballpark, you got all the smells, the sights, the colors. Like, it doesn't get any better than that.
And I still remember the PA announcer the very first time. Batter number 24, Willie Mays.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. A couple of different things I want to play and in regards to Willie and his greatness, but here is Tom Verducci from the MLB Network
Oh, that's
talking
a good
about
one.
Willie.
Yeah, I would say nobody played the game of baseball better than Willie Mays. And I say that saying it's not a statistical exercise. You can break it down a million different ways to find someone you like and make the numbers work for you. But if you just take the stats out of it and how Willie Mays played the game in the 5 major disciplines we're talking about, hitting for average, hitting for power, defense, throwing arm, running the bases, no one had that combination of skills. Just Willie Mays' defense alone, you can make a case he was the best defensive center fielder of all time. And we're talking about someone who hit 660 home runs. Monty Irvin, the great Giants star, said Willie Mays thought it was his solemn duty to catch every ball that did not leave the ballpark. And he came pretty darn close to doing that. So, yes, I would say nobody played this game better in terms of all the various disciplines of what it takes.
I love that. It's my solemn duty to catch every ball that doesn't leave the ballpark.
Yeah.
How good is that, Godfather?
Oh, it was such an advantage to have a guy like him in center field because your other 2 outfielders could play much closer to the line because of his range. He would get everything in the alleys.
Let's take a listen to Bob Costas on the Today Show talking about the great Willie Mays.
And that's pretty much true. That last item in Steve's report about Willie and his apartment on St. Nicholas Place in Harlem, it was a ground floor apartment. And the little kids would knock on the window in the morning. Let's say the Giants had a game at the Polo Grounds in the afternoon or even later that night. He'd come out and by his own testimony, I'll play stickball with them for a couple of hours. Willie was about, yes, greatness, but statistics, as tremendous as they are, do not do him justice because you had to see him play. He was great, but he was also wondrous. Even on a day when he went 0 for 4 and there were no spectacular plays, if that was the first baseball game you ever saw, your eyes would go to Willie Mays. Something charismatic about him, and he emanated joy. And I think it's both poetic and poignant that he died just a couple of days before the game, which is now tomorrow night at Rickwood Field, where so much Negro League and baseball history resides. That game was designed not just as a tribute to the Negro Leagues, but specifically as a tribute to Willie Mays, who played in Birmingham at that ballpark for the Birmingham Black Barons when he was just 17 years old in 1948. So there will be tributes throughout baseball as there were last night, but it'll be especially poignant tomorrow night at Rickwood Field.
There you go. Bob Costas sharing his thoughts. Keith Hernandez last night got choked up talking about his interaction with Willie.
At Shea Stadium when he was younger, and I also was in his company when he was older and he was legally blind. And what always came off was, and he was the say-hey kid. He had that ebullient personality, infectious and genuine. And I got to tell him that he was the greatest player I ever saw.
There you go. I mean, that's kind of the common theme right there.
Yeah.
So many baseball greats or people that have covered the game forever, like Bob Costas, best player I've ever seen. Even the great Vin Scully said that.
Yeah. A guy like Keith Hernandez, who played in New York and wasn't really in awe of too much, believe me. He was very, very confident of himself. He was just totally like a little kid around Willie Mays, as most players were. He was a god. He was a baseball god. And there's been nothing really like him since.
Tim Kirkshin with a great summary on SportsCenter last night with SVP.
Yeah, man, he's a very mature individual.
Oh, that's not what I'm looking for. I suck sometimes, Godfather. Oh, well, I thought I was going to have that, but I guess we don't. There you go. But let's see here, Tim.
Kirkchin was a big fan even when he was absolutely little kid many miles away from San Francisco.
Yeah, what do you say? I think he grew up like over 3,000 miles away, which is that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Begins with Willie Mays. Willie Mays is, for me, the greatest player I've ever seen. And I was captivated by baseball at the earliest age. But when I saw Willie Mays lead off the 65 All-Star game on a color TV in our house, I just could not believe what I was watching. He was the greatest player. As Johnny Bench once put it, he was the perfect baseball player. He had the perfect build. He had a style to him that nobody else has ever had. I grew up 3,000 miles from San Francisco, and I worship Willie Mays. Every time he was on TV, which wasn't very often for me, I couldn't miss it. That's how great he was. And I'm telling you, Scott, when he broke in 1951, he was the greatest combination of power, speed, and defense that the game had ever seen. And here it is, 73 years later, and I believe with all my heart, he is still the greatest combination of power, speed, and defense that the game has ever seen. That's
coming from a guy that saw a lot of baseball players.
Yeah. He's considered not only a historian, but an expert, really, in all matters baseball. Guy was pretty good. Willie Mays was pretty good. Take my word for it.
That's your hot take.
Yeah.
He was pretty good. I just hate losing legends, man. I hate it.
Yeah.
Because, like the ones that we grew up with, the greats, like they leave an impression, an impact on you.
Well, in my era, Chad, there was outfielders, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Roberto Clemente, Frank Robinson, all gone now. And I guarantee you, among those four guys, millions of young kids idolized one of those guys and maybe all of them.
Did Roberto pass away early? Is it a plane crash?
Yes, he was in the off-season taking supplies to people in Puerto Rico after a hurricane. Plane crashed.
Gosh.
Just after the last game of the season when he got his 3,000th hit.
Wow.
It's amazing. Greatest throwing arm you'd ever want to see, although a lot of players said Willie's was better.
And Barry Bonds, who was his godson, said, "I am beyond devastated and overcome with emotion. I have no words to describe what you mean to me. You helped shape me to be who I am today. Thank you for being my godfather and always being there. Give my dad a hug for me. Rest in peace, Willie. I love you forever." Hashtag say hey. So there you go. The great Willie Mays passed away at the age of 93. It's pretty cool when, someone must have been special when all of these greats, Vince Scully, Bob Costas, Verducci, Kirkshin, and then all these other players just talking about what Willie meant to them.
Yeah.
Keith Hernandez was choked up. Like, that's how good he was.
Mm-hmm.
He would show up in San Francisco at the Giant games all the time when I was down there.
Oh, I bet.
He was beloved.
Yeah.
Hanging out, being at the ballpark. And
the modern players loved having him around.
They did. And
Great
I like
stories and all that,
It's really cool when franchises continue to celebrate past greats and bring them back and stuff like that. To me, that's special. All right, we're going to keep things rolling. We got to talk with Brad Bach, and we'll get his take on the Lakers head coaching search. Why have they not named a head coach yet? What's up with that?
Don't know. Because they're the Lakers. They can do what they want.
And are we going to see any copycats around the league with Boston's, throwback to team ball? We'll talk with Brad Bach and CBS Sports coming up next. All right, joining us right now to put a bow on this NBA season after the Celtics topped the Mavericks to win their 18th World Championship is a gentleman from CBS Sports. Very happy to welcome Brad Botkin back to the show. And Brad, Dwight and I were talking about this before the show. With Boston, winning this more as a team, with the team concept, do you think we'll see more copycat around the league with teams trying to take on this model that Boston has put together?
Yeah, I think more and more every year it becomes evident that you need to have 5 guys that can play both ways. I guess somewhat to varying degrees, but for the most part, I do think that this idea that you can have multiple bad defenders, people who can't play both ways, people who have a limited skill set, are very, very difficult to overcome, whether that's bigs who can't shoot or wings who can't put the ball on the floor and make a play, or small guards who can't switch defensively. The NBA has just become so versatile, so talented, that yes, that general idea that you need to have 5 guys on the floor that can play both ways and do multiple things, I think is now everybody's goal. The caveat to that is the Celtics have 5 awesome players, and it's in theory that you can put that together. Travis Schlenk down in Atlanta was a big proponent of this. He came from the Golden State front office where they lived by that same embodiment, where they had multiple guys who could play multiple positions. They were very versatile defensively. And Travis Schlenk tried to take that down to Atlanta, and he drafted DeAndre Hunter and Kevin Herter and John Collins, and he tried to put all these versatile pieces around Trae Young, who was supposed to be his Steph Curry, and it just never happened. And so there's the theory that I agree with, that I think every team's shooting for that. In practice, being able to stumble onto this kind of a roster is very, very difficult.
Brad, we were talking about this, and I was thinking that of all the teams, the one that seems to have the best chance of duplicating that, if you look at their young talent, would be Oklahoma City. They have some guys who are good defenders, versatile players. Now, they got a ways to come. There's no question. They also have a bunch of draft picks in their pocket, too.
Oklahoma City is, to me, is right there. They have, to your point, they have multiple guys who are not just capable defenders, very good defenders. Shea is a good defender with size. Lou Dort is a lockdown defender. Cason Wallace is a lockdown type defender. Chet Holmgren is Defensive Player of the Year, legitimate at the rim. So, yeah, I agree with you that their blueprint is there. They're young, and I think that's why everybody considers them to be, one of the top contenders moving forward, probably for the next half decade. I totally agree with that.
We're talking with Brad Botkin, CBS Sports here on the Rip City Drive. And what's your take on the growth that we've seen over the last couple of years from Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla?
I always laughed at. I thought that was one of the funniest nicknames that Bill Simmons and his dad were calling him Second Row Joe.
Yeah.
I know how degrading that is, but it was just so funny.
It is funny.
Yeah, and now I hear after they win, he's not even First Row Joe, and now he's just Coach Joe. So good for him. I always find it very difficult to judge coaches because I just don't claim to know enough about the intricacies of the game, what's going on behind closed doors in terms of satisfying different egos, and this guy's on this contract and needs this many touches, and it's really very difficult. It's so easy. Like I look at, let's take Chris Finch, who I think did a great job with Minnesota, and he made what I thought to be a ridiculous decision at the end of the game when Luka hit the game winner. He had Rudy Gobert on the court and then said afterwards that he was going to switch everything. Now, if you're going to switch everything, in my mind, it's 100% that Luka Doncic is going to hunt Rudy Gobert, switch him, get him one-on-one, and he's going to score, which is exactly what happened. So in my mind, I'm thinking, if you're going to switch everything, don't have Gobert on the court. The only advantage he gives you is if he's backing up to the rim. If you're going to ask him to switch out onto the perimeter, you're setting yourself up for failure. So I'm saying this is a dumb decision by a coach. This is a bad decision. And there were a lot of decisions that Joe Mazzulla made like that in his first year that everybody pointed to. This guy's not ready. This guy's not ready. And I just think if you really nitpicked every coach in the league, I think you would find all kinds of decisions that even laymen like us can sit around and question. The problem is there's only a few teams that have the expectations of winning. So I guarantee Chauncey Billups made decisions and just like, man, that looks stupid on the surface. But it doesn't matter because they're not playing for a title. And so I just think in the first year, Joe Mazzulla made some decisions. He didn't call a timeout here or there that most people thought that he should have, whatever. And I think if I watched Boston that closely, I'm sure there would be things that he got better at this year. I just think, in general, if you have the roster and the roster is not playing significantly under its potential, like I look at how low the Warriors back in the day in 2013 were playing compared to their talent level under Mark Jackson. That was just egregious to have a 12th ranked offense with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. It was egregious. So when you're that far below replacement level, yeah, bring in a coach and he can be better. But I just think Joe Mazzulla, it's like they were right there. They went to Game 7 in the conference. You can nitpick a lot of stuff, but I just think they stuck with him. You know, the way that Denver stuck with Mike Malone through some years that they weren't winning. And I think continuity matters. I think the players respect Joe Mazzulla from everything that I've heard. And so in terms of like little things, little X's and O's or game management things that he got better at, I bet you if we all went back and looked at everything he did this year, I bet you there were still 15 decisions that was like, what was he doing? But they won. And so I really think that stuff gets overplayed. And if somebody can critique it, it's not me, even though I've certainly done it before. But it's in the end, I would just can't presume to know what they should have done better, if that's an answer at all.
Yeah, Brad, interested in your take on Luka. What's the next step for him? What does he need to do?
Pretty interesting. I mean, I'm going to just have to say the defensive side of the ball. He was so atrocious, and I'm more than happy to say this because this is egregious. He was so bad in the first 3 games, particularly in games 2 and 3. 2 was an abomination defensively. I mean, this was like give your paycheck back stuff.
Yeah.
It was so bad, so disinterested in defending. Like he was doing what you do down at the Y. You know, you let the guy cruise by and you try to slap the ball from behind.
Yeah.
Absolutely no awareness off ball. Guys slipping behind him in for cuts and layups. It's just egregious. And even somebody as good as him offensively, you can't survive like that. To Chad's first question, even who is probably either him or Jokic is the best offensive player in the world, even being that good, you cannot survive in today's NBA with that bad of a defender. Boston was just waltzing into the lane and kicking out for open threes when everybody had to collapse to make up for Luka. So, you know, he upped his 3-point percentage this year. He's I don't know what you could say about him offensively. That it's 2 things: the defense and the conditioning to be able to play defense.
Yeah.
Because of his load offensively, it may be asking a lot from him. He's probably, I don't know what he's listed at, but I'm looking at Luka. I'm thinking he's like 270. He's a big boy, and to carry that kind of weight offensively. And then also ask somebody to be engaged for 40 minutes plus defensively. To me, if I'm looking at Luka and saying, what can he do to take the next step? It's totally conditioning to be able to defend and then not be too tired in the fourth quarter.
We're talking with Brad Bach and CBS Sports here on the Rip City Drive. How much credit should be given to Brad Stevens just for the overall roster construction and recognizing that, you know, they needed to take some of the pressure off of Jason Tatum?
Oh, my God. You know, Brad Stevens was kind of catching a lot of hell the way that Joe Mazzulla was last year. Remember, he came in, He was like the new kid on the block. It's like, oh, Brad Stevens, here comes this young genius. And then, like, they kind of kept hitting that ceiling. And pretty soon, it's like, oh, Brad Stevens didn't call timeout at the right time. He didn't do this right. All of a sudden, he's a bad, you know, he was a pretty damn good coach. But he actually has proven, to me, unbelievably, to be even better in the front office. What he did putting this roster together and tinkering in the right spots. Now, Drew Holiday fell into his lap. You all facilitated that. So Portland sort of has a has a little bit of piece of this championship to me, because it's like, the Bucks wanted Dame, but I don't think they wanted Drew to go to Boston because of it.
Yeah.
And that, Drew, to me, could have been Finals MVP. That guy, absolutely, he has had such a big role in 2 championships. So to get him and have that kind of defensive pressure on the perimeter, that kind of that no headline deal to get Derek White a couple of years ago, it's like nobody even paid attention, but he's quietly putting together a backcourt that can guard 5 positions, at least 4. And you couple that with Tatum and Brown, to Chad's point early on, you slowly put together a team that can defend across the board, and all 5 of them can put the ball on the floor. None of them are just a spot-up shooter that can't do anything, that just has to stand in the corner and space the floor. They can all do everything, and yet every team is aiming for that. Brad Stevens pulled it off. If you look at what the Wizards ended up with for Porzingis, it's hilarious. It's hilarious what they ended up with to get who's one of the best big men in the league. And so he outfitted Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum with a guy in Porzingis who, what used to be Boston's kind of Achilles heel. Late in the game, they'd kind of slow down, stall out, and go for isolation, home run, three-pointers.
Yeah.
Now they have that option at the high post where, okay, it's stalled out. It's a tough possession, 7 seconds on the shot clock. Now instead of that sidestep 27-footer from Tatum, how many times, if you looked in Game 1 of the Finals, did they just go to that high post to Porzingis? He just turned and just shot right over who was guarding him. That's a high-quality, good possession in a dwindling shot clock that in the past the Celtics didn't really have an option to go to if their initial actions didn't work. So Brad Stevens just put the perfect team around these guys to be able to give them options and not have to have Tatum and Brown hit home runs all the time. And that was the difference. Because if you saw Tatum in the finals, he didn't hit home runs. He didn't even shoot that well. But all of a sudden with this team that Brad Stevens put around him, he didn't have to hit home runs because there's a whole bunch of singles hitters around him. And to me, he just did a phenomenal job. Again, Drew Holiday fell in his lap. That was that's not going to happen every year. But wow, what a roster he put together. And sticking with Joe, I remember after last year, it was like, we got to get rid of Joe or at least bring in an experienced assistant who can basically be the head coach and sit next to him, They didn't do any of that. I thought Brad Stevens was just phenomenal.
Okay, Brad, what about Dallas now? Western Conference is going to be very competitive for I don't know how much longer. Are we going to see them back right away? What do you think the future lies for them?
No, they may or they may not. But to be able to conclude that Dallas is now an upper echelon team that's going to be no, I wouldn't. There's not a chance I would pick Dallas to go to the finals next year. They may do it. I'm not sure which team I would pick. I still think Denver's the best team in the West. But who could you honestly look at in the West and say that it's just a murderer's row? We forget Memphis is coming back next year.
Yeah.
They're going to have John Morant. It's like, forget these lower teams like the Spurs and the Rockets maybe that we think are going to kind of be on the come up. Memphis was like a 2 seed. This was like an elite team that's just showing up again next year healthy. No, there's no chance. I think to some degree Dallas caught lightning in a bottle. I think OKC wasn't quite ready to go further in the playoffs. I think particularly from a shooting standpoint, they were the best 3-point shooting team in the league by percentage. But if you look at their individual shooters, how many of them, if you were a defensive coach, how many would you say, we got to shut that guy down as a shooter? Like Lou Dort, you're basically letting him shoot. Casey Wallace can shoot, but he's not a guy that you fear as a shooter. Chet Holmgren, he's a big who can shoot, but he's not like a lethal shooter. And that really showed up in the playoffs where that percentage that they acquired over the course of the year, maybe their shooters weren't quite as good as the percentages would have indicated. And so I think they weren't ready in that regard. And then Dallas gets a Minnesota team that has its own flaws offensively. And so they did what they did. Luka was the best player and they made it. But to think that blueprint is just completely replicable, I don't see that at all. I think they've got an uphill grind next year. I wouldn't be shocked if Dallas was the in the play-in next year. I really would, and then I'm not even sure that's a knock on them. I just, what if the Lakers go out and get a third star, and Memphis comes back and wins 57 games, and Denver's still the best team, and the Suns still have Durant and Booker, and what if the Warriors make a trade with Jonathan Kuminga and bring in a Paul George, and the Clippers still have, it's really easy to rattle off 6 teams and say Dallas is in the play-in. So, no, I don't think that that this is some indication that now Dallas is here to stay. And this was like the best year ever from Kyrie Irving too. So, how replicable is that?
Hey, Brad, when are the Lakers going to announce J.J. Redick as head coach? What's going on there? Why are they taking time?
Isn't that great?
It's so funny.
Isn't that great? Yeah. I don't know, dude. I just think it's hilarious that these teams, this goes back to the question about Missoula. I remember getting an argument like 5 years ago in my office with like one of the marketing guys. And we were going back and forth about how coaches don't matter. And he was saying that coaches don't matter. Give Popovich, whoever the worst team in the league was at that time, give Popovich the Kings and see how good he is. And it's like, okay, obviously, idiot. Like, it doesn't matter how good of a team. If you have a terrible team, like, yeah, nobody can coach it. But coaches win on the margins. They get little things here and there. And so I just think it's so funny that these teams keep thinking that because their team didn't win the championship, that they think a coach is going to be the answer. Again, I go back to the Mark Jackson. Every once in a while, there's an example of a team that's being so egregiously undercoached that the coach is actually stunting a team that's go back through history. How many teams were like ready to compete for or win a title, and their coach was just had them at 48 wins? And there's like 5 examples. So most of the time, the coaches are hovering around in the area that roster should be in. And the Lakers thought, we'll bring in Dan Hurley and everything will just change. Like, what, does he have some, magic offense or something that's going to make, Anthony Davis, be durable and LeBron James not be 39? And, I just find it funny. So now the Redick thing, what is Redick going to do to come in and make the Lakers different? It's just hilarious. The Hawks thought the same thing about Quinn Snyder. Like, and remember Nate McMillan, he was the guy that took over for Lloyd Pierce, and they went on that run to the conference finals. It was like, Nate McMillan's the guy. Well, really, if you look back at that Hawks season when they made that run, they just got healthy. Lloyd Pierce didn't have Bogdan Bogdanovic. A whole bunch of guys were hurt. And then right when McMillan comes in, those guys get healthy. And then they end up playing an overseeded Knicks team and a Ben Simmons Sixers team that was about to implode, and they make the conference finals, and they jump to the conclusion that McMillan was the reason. So they give him a 4-year deal. Well, what do you know? McMillan wasn't the reason. And then, we're going to bring in Quinn Snyder, this big name. He's going to turn it all around. They got worse. So the roster, for the most part, is the roster. And to think you're going to bring J.J. Redick or Dan Hurley in, and if the Lakers don't make significant roster moves, and there's just going to be some new way in L.A., save me on that. It's like coaches do matter. I'm not in the camp that they don't matter, but they don't matter that much. The thing is, all they are is the most changeable piece. You can't just up and change your roster because of salary cap and contracts and all that stuff. But you can always change your coach. And so it's just a way for a team to be like, look, man, we got nothing else to do. Like Terry Stotts for a year. Like that team went as far as that team was going to go. Terry Stotts wasn't under-coaching that team. But it's like, I don't know, let's bring in Billups. And it's just like, no, like that's not going to change anything. Like they weren't being egregiously under-coached. So I just don't, J.J. Redick, whoever the Lakers get, unless they make significant roster changes, they'll be within 4 wins one way or the other. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I just always find that funny that we had a disappointing season. We're going to go out and hire the next retread coach, and it's all going to change. It's actually laughable to me.
All right, Brad, let me run this scenario by you. Chad came up with this. I love it, okay? Now, be patient with this because it takes a while. All right, I know Rich Paul's saying all this stuff about LeBron and Bronny and all that, and he's not going to go anywhere else regardless of where Bronny goes. Okay, You're that red-faced, tomato-faced guy owning the Clippers. You draft Bronny. LeBron doesn't have to move. He's a free agent. He's got a better chance to win one more time, one more ring with the Clippers than he ever does with the Lakers. You know what?
Yeah.
I think that's worth the check. And you know what?
All right,
if
well,
he
listen,
doesn't
I need to
move,
know.
though, here's what nobody ever considered. If he doesn't move, what are the Lakers willing to give up to get Bronny over there with LeBron? That's why I would be tempted to draft him in the second round, no matter where I am, just to see what the Lakers are willing to give up to get him.
Well, that's a different point because the drafting him so that you think you can get LeBron. I gotta know the Clippers. I gotta know the Clippers' salary. I don't think they can sign LeBron. So it's like I don't care if he wants to go to the Clippers. They don't have the money. So I don't think that's viable. Now, if you're the Magic or the Sixers, who have the cap space to sign LeBron, I guess I could see where, hey, let's tempt him. Let's draft his son, and we actually have the financial viability to sign him. Maybe. But, yeah, it could be an ace up the sleeve to see what the Lakers would give up to get him. I don't know. I think you're probably right. Somebody's going to take – I wouldn't even be surprised if he ended up going in the first round. I think somebody's going to take him, and whether they admit it or not, it's partly because of what Dwight just said, just because of the whole unknown. I don't know if they would explicitly say we're taking Bronny because we think we can actually – it can be a lure to get LeBron, or we think it can be a way to make a lopsided trade with the Lakers. I just think they see it as a leverage asset in some general capacity. And most of these guys that get drafted in the second round, and hell, even the late first round, are total crapshoots. I think we've talked about this before on this show. I mean, go back and look at previous drafts from about the 15th pick on.
Yeah.
And not very many of them become anything. So it's like if you've got a chance to make a leverage play and you don't know exactly how that leverage might work in your favor, yeah, I think some team is going to do it.
All right, Brad Bach and CBS Sports here on the Rip City Drive. Brad, thanks for your time. Enjoy free agency, which is around the corner, and we'll talk to you in the future, buddy.
All right, thanks, guys.
There you go, Brad Bach. And breaking it down, we'll come back with high fives here on the Rip City Drive, and then we'll get the chance to go out and get warm again out in the sunshine, Godfather.
Can't wait.
All right, Godfather, any high fives you want to hand out?
Got to go to Willie Mays today. Yep.
I'll hand mine out to Willie Mays, too, the ultimate legend who passed away at the age of 93.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. He lived a good life.
What a great life.
Right. Yeah, he lived it right.
And like I mentioned before, some of those characters that I grew up admiring, that came before my time, mythological in the way people would discuss them.
No, you're right. It was a different time. You know, your athletic heroes in those days didn't always have feet of clay either.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it seems like sometimes they do. And word gets out easier. I think in those days, we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Now we kind of do.
Yeah.
TMZ is exposing everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. There's almost too much information now.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I hate seeing the legends. I hate losing a legend, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Bill Walton, Willie Mays. There's so many, greats. And it's weird when you get older and the guys that you grew up with admiring and they start passing away. It's like, wow. It's just reality smacking you upside the face.
Yeah.
It's so nice outside. How nice was it out there at Willamette Valley Country Club this morning as you were looking out over it?
It was beautiful.
Loaded up with golfers.
Yeah. I got to get out and hit some balls tomorrow morning.
Yeah, why don't you do that? Get on that, Godfather.
All right. Well, maybe the preparation sheet with the topics won't be as long tomorrow.
Preparation H?
Oh, the sheets that we do with all the
sheets.
show prep on it.
That's okay.
That's what I do in the mornings.
I never begrudge anyone for getting a few
extra shots.
Extra shots in, man.
Yeah.
You got to do that. I'll do anything. We'll work for free golf balls.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, my back's feeling really good. Good time to go out there and screw it up again.
I was going to say, yeah, give yourself a large bucket and just screw it all up again.
Yeah.
Man, you wouldn't think that hitting a golf ball would be so exhausting, but it's exhausting.
Oh, man. That's the thing, though, Chad. You got to make sure you don't overdo it. And on the range, it's just so tempting to machine gun those balls out there. You just can't do that.
No, I've really refined how many balls I hit, prior. Yeah.
Oh, you probably keep track, huh?
Well, I do. I just, my coach has helped me with, a little routine beforehand, but, you don't need to hit a ton of balls, So what he normally does, what my coach does, is he'll hit a few balls with his wedge, hit a few balls with a longer iron, and then hit a few drives, just to get a feel for where his swing is at. Right? Am I hitting the push draw? Am I hitting the push fade? What type of situation we got going on, and then get some practice putts in, and then you move on. That way you're not exhausted because, you're out there bumping around for 4 hours, especially now that the heat's warming up.
Yeah.
You get tired out there.
Yeah, but this is a longer session because I'm not going to go play. I'm just going to practice. So what do you prescribe for my practice routine?
Yeah, I excuse me. I think what you do is excuse me. I'm all choked up talking about golf.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, what you do is you pick something you want to work on, and then the one thing that my coaches encouraged me on just practice days, hit a few swings. I have the video there too, so I look at the video, and he said, don't be afraid to sit down for a few moments to catch your breath, think about what you're doing, and then go hit a few more shots. So you just kind of pace yourself, because just machine gunning golf balls is not. Yeah, it's usually develop bad habits that way, but plus you're just going to fatigue, and then what I've learned is once I get tired or my body starts to fatigue, that's when a lot of things can go out the window.
Mm-hmm. Don't you feel, though, sometimes if you hit a bad shot on the range, you just pick another ball up, you want to hit it right away just to erase what you just did?
I don't like to have bad memories.
Yeah.
Because every bad shot, I'm like, great, I'm just going to do that all day long now. I don't want that. I don't need that in my life.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Big thanks to Brad Botkin and to all of you for listening. We got Hops Baseball coming up next. And then we're back tomorrow morning. Justin Myers has Rip City Mornings at 6. And then Dwight and I will be back with the Rip City Drive at 3 here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
Give me the house. Yes! Get on up for the downstroke!
Let's get out of here.